Hey, what's up guys? Hopefully all you guys are staying safe out there. I know the past few weeks has been quite challenging and many people nationwide are out of work. Recently there was a bill that was passed called the CARES Act, which addresses the situation of how the government will help people by sending a $1,200 stimulus check based on their income levels. This also helps boosts unemployment benefits and also helps out small businesses. Since we are nearing the end of the month, I'm pretty sure that most people out there are worried about how to make rent or the mortgages right now. I wanted to make a video on what are your options on how you can pause your rent or your mortgage. With the president extending the nationwide lockdown until the end of April, I imagine times will continue to be challenging until we get those relief checks and if you qualify, those extra unemployment benefits. I'm here with you in the same boat. I also do currently rent, so I had to ask myself those same questions as well. What I'm about to say in this video is based off my research in the state of California. I also read other state relief programs as well, and they are very similar. So currently, California, Nevada, Arizona, New York, and many other states are suspending evictions and foreclosures for a certain period of time. So first off, let's talk about rent. Many states have ordered an eviction moratorium. Moratorium. To be honest, I actually had to look up that word because I never heard of it before. So on Google, it says moratorium means temporary prohibition of activity. So basically this means it prevents you from doing something. So an eviction moratorium means that it protects renters from getting evicted because they cannot pay rent due to financial hardships that is caused by the pandemic. So depending on the state that you live in, just double check if there's one in effect and how long it will be valid for. So at the making of this video, there are a few states like Mississippi, Nebraska, and Maine that don't have this order, but who knows, it may change later. But anyways, there's one here in California that went into effect in March 27th and is going to be valid through May 31st of 2020. So if this illness has impacted your ability to pay all or part of your rent, this is what you should do. So first off, you should explain your financial situation to your landlord and try to work something out. The earlier that you can communicate this to your landlord, the better your outcome may be. This is just communication 101. Don't be a jerk and tell them the day of or after being late. This gives them time to plan as well. The second thing that you should do is save all of your financial documents. Record keeping is key here. So if you have any documentation stating that you were laid off, your working hours were cut, or even a doctor's note stating that you needed to stay home because you became ill. The main reason why you should collect as much documentation as you possibly can is that in the case if there is a lawsuit or if the landlord tries to wrongfully evict you, this is where you have the proof to help out your situation. Because currently with the pandemic that's going on, it's impacting a whole lot of people, not just renters or homeowners, but also landlords and financial companies. If you're not able to pay your rent, it is possible that the landlord is not able to make their mortgage payments on that building. So they need your rent to pay off their bills. As you guys can see, this is kind of like a snowball effect. So it doesn't affect just you as a renter, but also affects other people as well. So if you're able to pay your rent or even part of it, and you're able to maintain your expenses and your utilities, you should do the right thing and pay off your rent or as much as you possibly can. I'm pretty sure there are people out there who want to abuse this system, like they want to come up with an excuse and not pay their landlord right now, but just keep in mind that this does not clear you from the rent that you owe. With an eviction moratorium, this basically places a pause on your rent. Because of your financial hardships, this helps you stay in your home much longer and avoid being homeless. As the unemployment application is at its record high, I'm pretty sure that most states out there, they don't want to have homelessness as a record high either. So whenever this whole thing clears up, and eventually it will, you and your landlord will probably have to discuss a payment plan that is reasonable and within your financial means once you get back to work and normalizing your life. Because it's probably going to be really difficult to make double payments on rent once you start working again. There are some states out there such as New York, which are allowing tenants to use their security deposit to pay off their month's rent, but I imagine they still need to be filled up back again once it's all said and done. So during the time when you are making the negotiation, make sure you have everything in writing. It just protects you and also the landlord in case of anything happens. So for example, let's say here in California, they extend this eviction moratorium until May 31st. So that's basically 2 months from now. So if you are able to negotiate something with the landlord to postpone 2 months worth of rental payments, it may be feasible to get those 2 months worth of rent paid over the remainder of your lease or over a certain amount of time that you both agreed upon. So based on what I researched from reading most state plans, they don't say anything about landlords charging you extra for interest or delay payments after everything is done. So this is kind of a gray area, so I'm not really sure if they legally can, but whatever you negotiate, just make sure that you have it in writing. I just can't stress that enough. And also, if the landlord is not willing to do this and they do want the rent, as calmly as you can, explain to them about this new law and this eviction moratorium and have it ready and printed out just in case. They may not have no clue that this type of order is even in place, so as nicely as you can, try to explain to them that they cannot evict you due to financial hardships because you were affected by this pandemic. Just a reminder, this does not protect everyone from eviction. You still have to be affected by this illness or pandemic to qualify for this protection. If you've taken all the steps that I mentioned earlier, like notifying your landlord as early as possible, documenting all your financial documents or statements, you should be fine. But you should definitely get a hold of a local legal aid provider if the landlord is trying to do something to evict you during this whole situation. Because of this eviction moratorium, I can almost guarantee you that if you have all the proof showing that you weren't able to make rent due to your financial hardship, you would most likely win the case. But again, I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. Just make sure you talk to someone who is. One question people may ask during this rent deferral is utilities included? And to answer this question, it really depends. So let's just say that you pay your landlord $1,500 a month and this also includes utilities. So in that instance, yes, it would be able to be deferred as well. But now let's just say that you pay $1,500 a month, but you have to pay for your trash, your water, your sewer, and electricity separately. So in this case, the only thing that you can actually delay payment on is your rent. With any of your utilities, you would have to contact them directly to see if you can set up a plan that allows you to pay them back at a later time or something like that. Because if your utilities are separate from your rent, then it is possible that the utility companies may turn off your services if you don't pay or work out a negotiation with them. But since right now it is a state of emergency, most likely utility services like water, they won't be shut off. But again, don't take my word on it, just double check with your state and your local providers. So right now, let's talk about people who own homes. So before I start giving you guys information, just double check with your guys' state to see what are the current rules and the current laws that apply to you. Here in California, they give you a 90-day grace period for all mortgage payments. This basically means that if you're currently unable to make your mortgage, financial institutions will offer mortgage payment forbearance for up to 90 days. Literally, what forbearance means is to hold back. Basically, like holding back your friend from getting into a fight when you know he's gonna get beaten up. So with mortgage payment forbearance, this prevents the banks or lenders from proceeding with foreclosure. And what foreclosure means is when the banks or the lenders try to take your home. But to make this all work, just make sure that you have all of your paperwork and documents that are related to your financial hardship. The same thing that I mentioned earlier about rent, like documentation being laid off or furloughed, and all the reasons why you're unable to pay your mortgage. Whenever you request for forbearance, just make sure you keep great records. I know that right now when you're trying to call companies, there's going to be long wait times. So when it's all said and done, I'm pretty sure that you don't want to call back to have them repeat any type of information. So just try to record as much information on the first phone call as you possibly can. So whoever you talk to on the phone, just make sure you get their name, the date, and the time you spoke to that person, and maybe even their employee ID, just to have a better record of everything. This is just to make sure that you are in forbearance and the lender doesn't pull something like you never requested anything, so they charge you with fees. Usually the banks or the lender will confirm approval of the forbearance and you should receive something in the mail or an email or something like that to confirm that you are in forbearance. So normally when you are in forbearance, you would normally sometimes have mortgage related fees or any other type of fees. But here in California with this new order in place, this prevents financial institutions from charging you those fees. And if you live in other states, I imagine they may have something similar. Just keep in mind that pausing your mortgage payment due to forbearance does not mean that you won't have to pay this money back later. I would imagine when you're in forbearance, you would negotiate something with the lenders that you would probably tackle on 3 or 6 months or whatever you agreed upon of mortgage payments toward the end of your term. You still have to pay interest on those deferred payments, so just keep that in mind as well. Many states also prevent new foreclosures from happening for a certain amount of days. Here in California, that's 60 days. What a foreclosure is basically when the mortgage lender or the banks, they take your home. Meaning that if you stop your payments for the next 60 days without requesting for forbearance, the financial institutions are not allowed to start any type of foreclosure or eviction process. So now let's answer some questions. Some people may ask, how do I actually get mortgage relief or forbearance? The best way to actually do this is to contact and work directly with your mortgage servicer or lenders and apply for available relief. Even though here in California, the minimum forbearance period is up to 90 days, but that does not mean that it is limited only to 90 days. So when you call up your mortgage lender, the terms of forbearance will be agreed upon you and them. So it can actually be up to like 6 months of forbearance. It really depends on you and your current financial situation and what your mortgage lender works out. Another question that people may ask is, will it have effect on my credit? Depending on the financial institution, they should not report any negative information such as late payments to credit agencies, but just keep in mind that it is possible that they may report the forbearance to the credit bureaus. So based off my research, I kind of heard conflicting stories whether or not if this will have a negative effect on your credit score, so just take it with a grain of salt because it possibly can and it possibly cannot. Depending on your state programs, it's really hard how long or how severe this pandemic is going to last. There are many financial institutions out there that are trying to help homeowners with the current situation. To name a few is JP Morgan Chase, US Bank, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and a bunch of other credit unions and state banks as well. So depending on where you live and who your mortgage provider is, just double check with them to see if they're offering any sort of relief for homeowners. Another question that people may ask is, what if I already made a payment and I was already charged with a late fee because of this current pandemic? Depending on when the state law went into effect, that would really factor in whether or not you will get a reimbursement or a refund for any type of fees or late payments. So for California, this went into effect on March 27th, so any fees before that would not be covered. I'm guessing this will be the same for other states as well. I know in this video, I'm mainly talking about mortgage relief for residential mortgages, but this may change because there may be mortgage relief for businesses as well. But currently there isn't any, so as the story develops, I try to keep you guys updated as much as I can. Alright guys, so that pretty much does it for me. If you guys have any questions about eviction or mortgage relief, just let me know in the comments below and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. If you guys want to learn more about personal finance, come hang out with me some more over here.